Do you believe in sin? I used to think I knew what it was. The big, obvious stuff you hear about in church. Greed, lies, anger, the classics. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. And to learn the truth, I had to die first. It was just another shift. A Tuesday night, I think. The kind of damp, cold air that gets into your bones. I was rolling through a part of the city we called the Eraser because that's where people and hope went to disappear. The streetlights were mostly dead, and the headlights of my patrol car just cut these lonely tunnels through the dark, revealing old warehouses covered in graffiti. It was quiet. Too quiet. My mind was a million miles away, thinking about my daughter's birthday. I'd promised her I'd pick up the cake on my way home. A simple pink cake with sprinkles. And that's when I saw him. He just appeared. A shadow detaching itself from a darker shadow in an alleyway. He wasn't big or scary. He just looked empty, like a house with all the furniture taken out. His face was a mask of desperation. He didn't hesitate. He didn't shout. He just raised a gun. Everything went into slow motion. I saw the glint of the metal under a flickering streetlight. My own heartbeat was like a drum in my ears, drowning out the crackle of the radio, the hum of the engine, everything. Two loud cracks like a whip snapping right next to your ear. The windshield exploded into a spiderweb of 1,000 tiny diamonds. The first bullet felt like a sledgehammer hitting me in the shoulder, slamming me back against the seat. But the second one stole my breath. It stole my future. It was a hot, searing poker sliding into my chest. I remember the coppery taste of blood filling my mouth. My hands, trembling and slick, fumbled for the radio. I had to get the words out. Dispatch, this is 3-12. My voice was a choked gurgle. It didn't even sound like me. I'm hit. I repeat. Officer down Pier Street. My hand slipped off the radio and fell to my side. It felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I'd managed to hit the siren, but the sound was weird, distorted. It seemed to be coming from far away, like I was hearing it from the bottom of a swimming pool. The world was shutting down. Like an old tube TV my grandma used to have. First the sound gets all warped and fuzzy. Then the picture shrinks down to a little white dot, and then finally the light goes out. Before all of that, before the flashing lights and the taste of my own blood, I guess I was just a guy. My name is Mark Davis. I had a mortgage that was a little too high, a lawn I never had time to mow, and a coffee machine that knew my morning routine better than my own wife did. Psst. I clocked in. I clocked out. I was a sergeant with the force for 15 years. I thought I was one of the good guys. I thought I knew right from wrong, but the job, it grinds you down. You start to see the world differently. It wasn't about people anymore. It was about categories, victims, perps, witnesses, us and them. You build walls inside yourself just to get through the day. You see so much darkness that you forget how to look for the light. My heart had become like one of those old precincts, functional, cold, with all the windows barred up. I was good at my job, but I was running on empty. I remember the morning it happened. My wife, Sarah, had made me breakfast. The eggs were cold. I made a comment about it. Not a mean one, just a tired one. I saw the look on her face. A little flicker of hurt that she tried to hide behind a sip of her own coffee. She thought I was just tired from a long shift. But the truth, the thing I never told her, was that I was tired of everything. I'd forgotten how to just be with her. The silence between us had gotten so loud it was all I could hear. And my daughter, Emily, she was about to turn 8. That whole day, the only thing that felt real was the promise I'd made to her. A pink cake with sprinkles. The night before, she'd shown me a drawing she made at school. A picture of our family. We were all holding hands under a smiling sun. I remember looking at it, nodding, saying, "That's great, sweetie," while I was scrolling through the news on my phone. Just scrolling, reading about arguments happening 1,000 miles away, getting angry at people I'd never meet. I was right there in the room with her, but I was gone. She must have felt it. That little drawing was a life raft, and I didn't even have the sense to grab it. That was my life. A collection of moments I was barely present for. I had everything a man was supposed to want. A family that loved me, a steady job, a home. But I felt like a ghost, haunting my own life. I was going through the motions, checking the boxes, but inside there was just this quiet, hollow hum. A feeling that none of it really mattered. I thought that was just what being an adult was. You just get used to the emptiness. But what happened next proved just how wrong I was. The world wasn't empty at all. It was screaming with things I was just too blind and too arrogant to see. And as I drove into the Eraser that night, my mind wasn't on the danger. It was on a stupid argument about cold eggs and the guilt of a birthday cake I still needed to buy. I had no idea I was driving toward the only thing that could possibly wake me up. So let me ask you, have you ever felt that way? Like you're just a passenger in your own life? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story is speaking to you, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what I was shown when my heart stopped beating. I'll be sharing more of what I learned in the next video. Looking back, the whole day was a warning. A series of little red flags that I was too busy, too wrapped up in my own head to even notice. The universe was screaming at me to stop, to turn around, and I just put my foot on the gas. It started that morning right after the stupid fight about the eggs. As I was leaving for my shift, I grabbed my keys off the hook by the door. But my hand fumbled and the whole heavy ring of them crashed onto the tile floor. The sound was deafening in the silent house. It sounded final, like a jail door slamming shut. Sarah came out of the kitchen, a worried look on her face. I just forced a smile, told her I was clumsy, and walked out without another word. I didn't even kiss her goodbye. I never left without kissing her goodbye. The feeling followed me to the precinct. A cold, heavy knot in the pit of my stomach. My partner Dave tried to lighten the mood. He was a good guy, always ready with a bad joke. He slapped me on the back and said something about me needing more coffee. I just grunted in reply. While I was putting on my vest, I looked in the mirror. And for a split second, the man looking back wasn't me. It was someone older, grayer. The eyes were hollowed out like he'd already seen a ghost. It only lasted a second, but it shook me so badly I had to lean against the locker to steady myself. Dave asked if I was okay. I just waved him off. Said I had a rough night's sleep. He didn't know. Nobody knew that I felt like I was walking around in a dead man's shoes. The first few hours of the shift were quiet, eerily so. The city felt like it was holding its breath. I took a call for a fender bender on the interstate. No big deal. But as I was taking the driver's statement, I saw something that froze me in place. An old, tattered bumper sticker on his car. It was one of those cheap, faded ones. It just said, "See you on the other side." The driver was an old man, probably didn't even remember putting it on there. But the words, they seemed to lift right off the sticker and hang in the air in front of me. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck. I just wanted to get back in my car, turn on the siren, and drive straight to the bakery, straight to that pink cake. But the worst sign, the one that I truly have no excuse for ignoring, came about an hour before everything went down. We got a call about a kid who'd gotten lost. We found him in a park, crying on a bench, totally fine. As I knelt down to talk to him, he looked right at me, his eyes wide and serious. He couldn't have been more than 6. He stopped crying and just stared at my badge. Then he whispered, "You have a hole in you." I thought he meant my uniform was torn. I looked down, but there was nothing. I asked him what he meant. He just pointed right at my chest. "Right there," he said, "a big dark hole. The light is getting out." His mom came running up then, apologizing, and scooped him up. I stood there, rooted to the spot, feeling an imaginary cold spot right where he had pointed. I should have gone home. I should have called in sick. I should have listened to that little boy or the bumper sticker or the sound of my keys hitting the floor. Every sign was pointing to the same thing: danger, stop, go back. But I didn't. I got back in the patrol car. The ghost of the boy's words still echoing in my ears, and told Dave I was fine. I convinced myself it was all just stress. Said I was letting the job get to me. I was a professional, a sergeant. I didn't believe in omens. But what happened next proved that it doesn't matter if you believe in them, they believe in you. And they were all leading me to that one dark street, to that one desperate man, to that one moment that would tear a hole in my world for real. Have you ever had a feeling like that? A day where everything just feels wrong, like a warning you can't quite understand? Let me know in the comments below. And please, if this story is resonating with you, subscribe and hit that bell. Because in the next video, I'm going to tell you exactly what I saw when that hole in my chest became real and the light finally went out. You won't want to miss it. The man who stepped out of the alley wasn't a monster. He was just a man. And that was the most terrifying part. His eyes were wide, empty pools of desperation. There was no rage in them, no malice, just nothing. A void. He raised the gun, and the world slowed to a crawl. I saw everything. The way the cheap metal of the pistol caught the single working street light, the tremor in his hand. The way his lips were a thin, bloodless line. My own heart was a wild animal trapped in my ribs, beating against them, trying to get out. My training screamed at me, draw, fire, neutralize, but my body was frozen in that thick, syrupy slow motion. Then came the cracks. 2 of them. So loud, so close, they felt like they were inside my skull. The windshield didn't just break. It detonated. A million tiny stars flew at me, glittering in the headlights. The first bullet hit my shoulder, and it was pure brute force. A sledgehammer swing that threw me back against the headrest, stealing the air from my lungs. But the second one was different. It wasn't a punch, it was a fire. A hot, white poker that slid between my ribs and set my entire world ablaze. My hands, slick with my own blood, clawed for the radio. My fingers felt like clumsy sausages. I had to get the words out. I had to warn them. Dispatch. The word came out as a wet gurgle, mixed with the coppery taste of blood that was now filling my mouth. Officer down, Pier Street. My hands slipped. It felt impossibly heavy. The siren I'd managed to hit was wailing, but the sound was wrong. It was warped, distant, like I was hearing it from underwater. My vision started to tunnel. The edges of the world were turning dark, like a photograph being burned from the outside in. And in that darkness, my thoughts weren't of procedure or backup. They were of a pink cake. A simple, stupid pink birthday cake with sprinkles. I could see it perfectly in my mind. I could see Emily's face when I brought it home. Her smile. The gap where she'd lost a tooth. I'd promised her. And now I was going to break that promise. It was the only thing that mattered. Not the mortgage, not the promotions, not any of it. Just a little girl waiting for a cake her daddy was never going to bring home. Then I saw Sarah's face. Her expression that morning over the cold eggs. That little flash of hurt I was too tired, too wrapped up in myself to even acknowledge. I never kissed her goodbye. 15 years, and I never once left without kissing her goodbye. Until today. The silence between us that had felt so heavy now seemed like a wasted treasure. All those moments I could have filled with something, anything, and I just let them pass. I was a ghost in my own life, and only now as I was becoming a real one did I finally see it. The pain was fading, replaced by a strange, creeping cold that started in my fingers and toes and was working its way to my heart. The distorted wail of the siren was getting quieter, slower. It was like my grandma's old tube TV shutting down for the night. The sound warps, the picture shrinks to a tiny, brilliant white dot in the center of the screen, and then with a soft little pop, it's just gone. My last breath left my body not as a gasp, but as a quiet sigh. The little white dot of my life winked out, and then there was only silence. A profound, absolute silence I had never known. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Because in that total, complete darkness, a different kind of light began to bloom. Have you ever had a moment of regret so powerful it felt like it could rewrite the past? Tell me about it in the comments. And please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Because what I was shown in that silence after my heart stopped beating is a message you need to hear. I'll share it with you in the next video. The silence was the first thing I noticed. It wasn't just quiet like a library or a sleeping house. It was a perfect, absolute lack of sound. The kind of silence that has a weight to it. The sirens, the shouting, the frantic beat of my own heart, it was all just gone. Wiped clean. And the pain vanished. The fire in my chest was out. The crushing weight on my shoulder was lifted. I felt nothing. And it was the most peaceful I'd felt in 15 years. I didn't have a body anymore. I tried to feel for my hands, to wiggle my toes, but there was nothing to feel. I was just me. A point of awareness floating in a gentle, gray nothingness. It wasn't dark. It wasn't light. It was like the inside of a cloud that stretched on forever. I wasn't scared. How could I be? Fear needs a body. It needs a racing heart and shallow breath. I had neither. I was just watching. And then a scene started to form below me. It was like watching a movie on a screen made of mist. Flashing lights, red and blue, silently painting the wet asphalt. I could see my patrol car, the driver's side door hanging open like a broken jaw. I saw paramedics. Their movements were frantic, urgent, but they made no sound. They were working on someone on a stretcher, a man in a police uniform covered in blood. Took me a moment to understand. My mind just couldn't make the connection. I saw the familiar badge number on the sleeve. I saw my own wedding ring on his limp hand. That was my body down there. That was the shell I had just left behind. But I felt no attachment to it. It was like looking at a car you used to own, wrecked on the side of the road. You recognize it, you remember the journeys you took in it, but it's not you anymore. They were pounding on his chest, putting a mask over his face, their expressions grim. And all I could think was, they're trying so hard. I hope it works out for that guy. But what happened next was when everything truly changed. The scene below me began to dissolve. The flashing lights, the paramedics, my own broken body, it all faded away like smoke in the wind. The gray nothingness returned, but this time it felt different. It wasn't empty anymore. It felt full. Full of a presence. A deep, ancient, and overwhelming sense of being known. I was a single drop of water that had just fallen back into the ocean, and I could suddenly feel the entire ocean at once. I wasn't Mark Davis, the cop with a mortgage and a tired marriage anymore. All of that was just a costume I had been wearing. Stripped of it, I was something else entirely. Something smaller and yet part of something infinitely bigger. The disorientation was gone, replaced by a profound sense of clarity. I finally understood that my whole life I hadn't been driving the car. I'd just been a passenger, staring out the window, completely missing the point of the journey. And now, the journey was over. Or so I thought. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like you were seeing your life from the outside, like you were just watching a character in a movie? Let me know your experience in the comments. And please, if you want to know what was waiting for me in that silence, subscribe and hit the bell. Because in the next video, I'm going to tell you about the voice I heard, and the first of the 4 truths it showed me. The gray nothingness wasn't empty for long. It started to breathe. A light began to bloom from the center of everything, but it wasn't a light you see with your eyes. It was a light you feel. Imagine the warmth of the sun on your face after a long winter, the comfort of a perfect hug, and the relief of a guilty conscience being wiped clean, all rolled into one. It was a light made of pure love, and it filled every part of what I was. I wasn't scared. I felt like I had finally come home. And then, the voice. It didn't come through ears. It was a thought, a knowing, that bloomed inside me as clear and certain as my own name. It wasn't a man's voice or a woman's. It was the sound of a billion sunsets and a billion crying mothers all at once. It was the voice of absolute truth, and it knew me. It knew everything about me. The cold eggs, the forgotten kiss, the scrolling on my phone, every tiny failure and every hidden shame. But there was no judgment in it, only a deep, cosmic sorrow. This is not your place, it resonated within me. Not yet. What is happening to me? The question was just a thought, but it was answered instantly. Humanity is sick, the voice said, the sadness in it so profound it felt like it could crack a star. You have forgotten. You have lost yourselves in poisons you no longer even recognize as sin. I will show you. And just like that, the universe around me shifted. I was no longer in the gentle light. I was watching the world, but not from my own eyes. I was seeing it all at once through the eyes of this presence. The first vision crashed over me. I saw a man in a glass tower office signing a paper with a gold pen, and at the same instant I saw a village downstream 1,000 miles away, where children were drinking brown water from the river he had just signed away. I saw people in a bustling city stepping over a homeless man on the sidewalk as if he were a crack in the pavement, their faces illuminated by the glow of their phones. No one even looked. They'd built their world so they wouldn't have to. The first poison is weaponized apathy, the voice explained. It is not just the failure to care. Is the deliberate construction of a world where you are not required to. A bubble of comfort so thick that the screams of the suffering become silent. My own life flashed before me. Me, nodding at Emily's drawing while my mind was 1,000,000 miles away, lost in some pointless online argument. I hadn't just been distracted. I had chosen my bubble over her world. The shame was a physical blow, even without a body to feel it in. But it was already moving on. The vision shifted. I saw an endless scroll of faces, all shouting. People screaming at each other in comment sections, using words like daggers, fighting over things they had only read a headline about. They weren't seeking truth. They were seeking victory. They held their slivers of information like shields, proud of their ignorance, convinced it was wisdom. The second poison is the arrogance of empty information, the voice declared. You have mistaken access to data for the gaining of wisdom. Pride in what you think you know has closed your hearts to what you need to learn. You shout, but you do not listen. I thought of all the times I'd dismissed Sarah's feelings because I was the logical one, the times I'd judged a victim or a suspect based on a file, not a soul. I had been so sure I was right, so empty. Then a third vision. I saw a young couple swiping left and right on a phone, discarding human faces like playing cards. I saw majestic forests being torn down, not with malice, but with a cold, blank indifference, reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet. I saw things that should have been sacred, love, life, nature, faith, all being treated as cheap, disposable, and convenient. We'd forgotten how to feel awe. The third poison is the trivialization of the sacred, the voice mourned. You have taken the profound mysteries of life and love and made them shallow. You seek instant gratification where you should be seeking timeless connection. Nothing is holy to you anymore. And then came the fourth vision. And this one broke me. I saw faces contorted in pure, joyful hatred at rallies. I saw families ripped apart, brother against brother, over the color of a flag or the name of a political party. I saw people defining their entire existence not by what they loved, but by who they hated. They weren't just disagreeing, they were taking pleasure in the division. They were falling in love with the walls they built. And the fourth, the most dangerous of all, is the worship of division. The voice thundered, and for the first time, I felt something like anger. A holy, righteous anger. You have forgotten that you are all my children. You find your identity in your tribe, your team, your party, and you find your purpose in the destruction of the other. This is the sin that unravels everything. I saw my own life. Us versus them, cops versus perps, the good guys versus the bad guys. I had spent 15 years drawing lines, building walls inside myself. It was how I survived. But now I saw that in trying to survive, I had forgotten how to live. Those four poisons, they weren't just out there in the world. They were in me. They were the reason my eggs were cold that morning. They were the hole in my chest long before the bullet ever hit. The visions faded. The gentle, loving light returned and the voice softened. Salvation is not in grand miracles. It is in small acts of connection, humility, reverence, and empathy. Go back and remember. Show them. A violent jolt, like being hooked and pulled through space. The peace shattered. The silence was ripped apart by a sound. A slow, steady beep beep. The light of love was gone, replaced by a harsh, sterile, white light that burned my eyes. The fire was back in my chest, a real physical agony that made me gasp. I was back. So let me ask you, when you look at your own life, which of those 4 poisons do you see reflected the most? Be honest with yourself. Let me know in the comments. And please, subscribe and hit that bell, because this was just the beginning of my journey. In the next video, I'll tell you what it was like trying to live in this world again, knowing what I now know. The visions faded, leaving me floating in that warm, loving light. The shame was overwhelming. Weaponized apathy, the arrogance of empty information, the trivialization of the sacred, and the worship of division, they weren't just sins of the world. They were my sins. I saw them in the way I'd ignored Sarah's feelings, in the way I scrolled past tragedies on my phone, in the way I'd built my identity around a badge and a uniform, the ultimate us versus them. I was a textbook case. I had been so blind. And in that moment of perfect, crushing clarity, I just wanted to dissolve, to let go of the pathetic, hollow man I had been and just become part of this beautiful, forgiving light forever. There was no pain here, no mortgage, no cold eggs, just peace. Why would anyone ever choose to leave this? Then the voice came again, softer this time, full of a deep and patient love. Go back, it resonated inside me, and remember, salvation is not found in grand miracles, but in small acts of connection. In humility, in reverence, in empathy. Your work is not done. Show them. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation, a choice. I could stay. I could let go of Mark Davis and all his failures and just be. Or I could go back. Back to the pain. Back to a body torn apart by bullets. Back to a world choking on the very poisons I'd just been shown. It felt like being offered a warm, safe home after a lifetime in a storm, and then being asked to walk back out into the rain. For a second, I hesitated. I wanted the peace more than anything. But then I saw her face. Emily, waiting for her pink cake with sprinkles. I saw Sarah's face that morning. The hurt she tried so hard to hide. Small acts of connection. That was it. My salvation wasn't about saving the world. It was about saving my own little corner of it. It was about learning how to be present for a child's drawing. It was about kissing my wife goodbye and actually meaning it. The mission wasn't to preach from a mountaintop. It was to mend the tiny, sacred world I had been trivializing for years. I had to try. I made the choice. I'll go back. The instant the thought formed, it was like a cosmic fishhook snagged my soul. The peace shattered. I was yanked backward, pulled violently down through the gray nothingness. The loving light receded into a tiny dot, just like the one I'd seen when I died, and then it was gone. The absolute silence was ripped apart by a single intrusive sound. A sound from the world I'd left behind. Beep. A pause that felt like an eternity. Beep. The sensation of my body slammed back into me all at once. It was an avalanche of agony. The fire in my chest roared back to life, 10 times hotter than before. The weight of my own limbs felt like concrete. I felt the plastic tube scratching the back of my throat. I gasped, and the feeling of air-cold, sterile, hospital air burning its way into my lungs was the most shocking pain of all. My eyelids fluttered. They felt like they were sealed with lead. With every ounce of strength I had, I forced them open. The divine light was gone, replaced by the harsh fluorescent glare of a hospital ceiling panel. A face swam into view above me. A woman in scrubs, her eyes wide. She looked like she'd just seen a ghost. I guess in a way she had. "He's back," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Doctor, he's back." I was back, trapped again in flesh and bone, with a fire in my chest and a truth in my soul that was so much heavier and so much more painful than any bullet. So let me ask you, if you were given that choice between perfect, painless peace and returning to a broken world to do a difficult job, what would you have chosen? Tell me honestly in the comments. And please subscribe and hit that bell, because coming back was the easy part. In the next video, I'm going to tell you what happened when I tried to explain to everyone what I had seen on the other side. The first breath I took back in my body wasn't a gasp of relief. It was a scream of agony that got trapped in my throat by a plastic tube. The peace was gone, ripped away and replaced by a universe of pain. Every nerve ending was on fire. The bullet wound in my chest felt like a hot coal, and my shoulder felt like it had been shattered with a hammer. The gentle, loving light was gone, replaced by the harsh, sterile white of a hospital ceiling. The silence was gone, replaced by the frantic, steady beeping of the machine that was now tethered to my life. I was back, and my first thought wasn't, thank God. It was, why did you send me back to this? Faces swam into view. Nurses, doctors. Their eyes were wide, their mouths moving, but their words were just a muffled buzz. They saw a medical miracle, a patient who flatlined for 7 minutes and then just came back. They used words like spontaneous cardiac restart and anomalous neurological activity. They were trying to fit what happened into a box, to explain it with charts and science. But I knew the truth. They were trying to explain a thunderstorm by describing the raindrops. They hadn't heard the voice. They hadn't seen the poisons. But then the hospital room door opened and everything else faded away. It was Sarah. Her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She looked like she had aged 10 years in a single day. When she saw my eyes were open, she made a sound, a choked, broken sound that was half gasp, half sob. She rushed to my side and grabbed my hand. Her touch was the first thing that felt real. The old me would have tried to be strong, to crack a joke, to tell her I was okay, but I wasn't the old me. I just held her hand, the plastic 4 tubes digging into my skin, and I let the tears I didn't know I had stream down my face. I wasn't just looking at my wife. I was seeing her for the first time. I saw every sacrifice she'd ever made for me. Every lonely night she'd waited up, every worry line on her forehead that I had helped put there. The trivialization of the sacred. I had taken this woman, this incredible gift, and treated her like she was just a part of the furniture in my life. The shame was a fresh wound on top of all the others. The days that followed were a special kind of hell. The physical pain was one thing, but the real struggle was happening inside my head. The world I had returned to felt wrong. It was too loud, too fast, too angry. The television in the corner of my room was a constant source of torment. I'd watch the news and I could literally see the 4 poisons in action. I saw politicians celebrating division. I saw commercials that trivialized love into a product you could buy. I saw pundits shouting at each other, drowning in the arrogance of their own empty information. And I saw story after story of suffering presented without context or compassion, designed to be watched for 2 minutes and then forgotten, weaponized apathy on a 24-hour loop. It was like I'd been given a new set of eyes that could see the sickness, and it was everywhere. My partner Dave came to visit. He tried to lighten the mood, making jokes about how I'd do anything to get out of paperwork. The whole squad signed a get well card filled with cop humor. They were good men. They were my brothers, but I couldn't connect. When Dave slapped my leg and said, "It's good to have you back, man," I just looked at him. I really looked at him. I saw the exhaustion behind his smile, the wall he'd built around his own heart to do the job. He was drowning, just like I had been, and he didn't even know it. I didn't have a witty comeback. I just said, "It's good to be seen, Dave." He gave me a weird look, clapped me on the shoulder, and left a few minutes later. I was surrounded by people who loved me, and I had never felt more alone. The worst moment came a week later when I was finally able to talk without a tube in my throat. Sarah was sitting by my bed, holding my hand. She was telling me about Emily, about how she was being so brave. I knew I had to try. I had to tell her. My voice was a raw whisper. "Sarah, I started when I was gone. I saw something. I was shown something." She squeezed my hand and gave me a sad, gentle smile, the kind of smile you give a child who has just told you about a nightmare. "The doctor said you might have hallucinations, Mark," she said softly. "It's the medication. It's the trauma. Just rest." She thought she was comforting me. But what she was really doing was building a wall. She was putting what I had been through in a box labeled trauma so she wouldn't have to look at it. And in that moment, I understood the impossible task ahead of me. I had been sent back with a message, but I had returned to a world that had forgotten how to listen. Have you ever had a truth in your heart so deep and so real, but you knew that if you said it out loud, the people you love would think you were crazy? Let me know in the comments below. And please subscribe and hit that bell, because if you think coming back was hard, you won't believe what happened when I was finally released from the hospital and tried to step back into my old life. Going home was the strangest part. The world outside the hospital window looked exactly the same. Same traffic, same billboards, same people rushing around with that familiar, stressed-out look on their faces. But I was seeing it through new eyes. I saw a driver cut someone off and scream, and I didn't see road rage. I saw the worship of division. I saw a commercial for a luxury car promising happiness, and I saw the trivialization of the sacred. Every radio ad, every news headline, it was like I could see the code, the sickness running underneath everything. Sarah was driving, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. She kept glancing at me, not sure what to say. The old me would have filled that silence with a complaint about the traffic. The new me just reached over and put my hand on hers. I didn't say a word. She flinched, just for a second, surprised. Then her fingers slowly relaxed under mine. The first few weeks were a tightrope walk. My body was healing, but my soul was in a completely different kind of rehab. I couldn't go back to the force. The thought of putting on that uniform, of drawing that line between us and them again, felt like a betrayal of everything I'd been shown. I handed in my badge. My captain thought it was PTSD. Dave thought I was crazy. They didn't understand that the man who had been shot on Pier Street never really came back from the dead. Someone else did. And that someone else spent his days doing the smallest things. I started making Sarah coffee every morning. Not just pushing the button on the machine, but asking her how she wanted it. And then I would sit with her while she drank it, and I would just listen. I didn't offer solutions to her problems at work. I didn't check my phone. I just listened. The first time I did it, she looked at me with such suspicion. Her eyes narrowed like she was waiting for the punchline. But after a week, I saw her shoulders start to relax. The guarded look in her eyes started to soften. It was like I was watering a plant I had let dry out for 15 years, and a single green leaf was starting to unfurl. And Emily, I found that drawing she had made, the one of our family under the smiling sun. It was tacked to the fridge, a little wrinkled now. I took it down carefully and sat with her on the floor of her room. I didn't just say, "That's great, sweetie." I asked her about it. I asked her why she made the sun smile. I asked her why she drew me bigger than the house. She talked for 20 minutes explaining the entire world she'd created on that one piece of paper. And I was there for every second of it. I was present. It was the most profound conversation I'd had in my entire life. That little drawing wasn't just a drawing anymore. It was a map. A map showing me the way back to the things that were sacred. A pink cake had almost cost me my life, but a child's drawing was what was saving it. The final break with my old life came during a barbecue at Dave's house. He was trying to be a good friend, trying to get me back to normal. All the guys from the precinct were there, standing around the grill talking shop. They were talking about the man who shot me. They'd caught him. They called him a scumbag, a monster. They talked about locking him up and throwing away the key, and I felt nothing. No anger, no desire for revenge. All I could see was the face from the alleyway, that empty, desperate void. He wasn't a monster. He was just a man so completely consumed by the poisons that he had become one himself. I tried to explain it. I said he was just lost, Dave. He was just as sick as the rest of the world. The whole backyard went quiet. Dave just stared at me, a half-eaten hot dog in his hand. He had this look on his face. It was pity. He thought I had lost my mind. In that moment, I knew I could never go back. I wasn't one of them anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark of our living room, the weight of the message pressing down on me. I had been sent back to show them, but how? They didn't want to see. They thought I was broken. Then my eyes landed on my phone, sitting on the coffee table. For years, it had been my escape. My tool for weaponized apathy, for scrolling past the world's pain. My source of empty information. But what if I used it for something else? What if I stopped trying to convince the people who already knew me and just told my story to strangers? What if I could use this little glowing box not to build walls, but to open a window? The idea was terrifying. It was the last thing in the world I wanted to do. But I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones that it was what I had to do. So here I am. This is my new precinct. This camera is my new partner. My mission is no longer to arrest the people who break the law. It's to try and connect with the people who are lost. I wasn't saved to be a cop. I was saved to be a warning. To tell you that the world is sicker than you think, but that the cure is simpler than you can imagine. It's in the small acts. It's in putting down your phone and looking into the eyes of the person you love. It's in choosing empathy over your tribe. It's in remembering what is sacred. I died on Pier Street, but I was born right here in this chair talking to you. So my question for you is this. Have you ever felt a calling to completely change your life's direction? No matter how scary or crazy it seemed to everyone else? Let me know in the comments. And please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because my journey was just beginning. And in the next video, I'll share the unbelievable things that started happening when I first put my story out into the world. You're not going to want to miss it. So, I survived. But the man who woke up in that hospital bed wasn't the same man who was shot on Pier Street. I see the world differently now. I see the apathy when someone scrolls past to cry for help online. I see the arrogance in a comment section full of strangers who are certain they're right. I see the sacredness of a family dinner being trivialized by the glow of a dozen tiny screens. And I see the worship of division every single time I turn on the news. The poisons are real. They're in the air we breathe. But the message I was given wasn't one of despair. It was one of hope. The voice told me salvation is not found in grand miracles, but in small acts of connection, humility, reverence, and empathy. That's it. That's the whole secret. It's not about saving the world. It's about saving your corner of it. It's about putting down your phone and asking your partner about their day and actually listening to the answer. It's about teaching your children to feel awe for a sunset. It's about having the humility to admit you might be wrong. It's in the small, quiet moments that we push back the darkness. I was sent back to share this. Not because I'm special, but because I was so completely lost. I was the perfect example of a man dying from the sickness without even knowing he had it. And if I can change, if a hollowed-out, cynical cop like me can learn to see the light again, then anybody can. This message wasn't just for me. It's for you. So I have to ask you, and I need you to be honest with yourself, which of those four poisons has its hooks in you the deepest? Is it the apathy that keeps you comfortable? The arrogance that makes you feel right? The triviality that keeps you distracted? Or the division that gives you a tribe to belong to? Which one is dimming your light? Let me know your honest answer in the comments below. This is a safe place to talk about it. And if this story, this message has resonated with you, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. I'm just getting started. And I have more stories to share, stories of small acts of connection that are changing the world one person at a time. Thank you for listening.